How are you? We're here at the Hoboken Historical Museum in the upper gallery, and we're streaming out live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. You know that because that's how you're joining us right now. And of course, this program will be archived on our YouTube channel, and we hope you spread the word to others to check it out. Again, the show is Hoboken Talks, and this is Thursday night, 7 p.m. live. And this, we believe, is around our 25th show. We are a museum. We should have our historical facts correct. So we're not sure if it's 24, 25, or 26, but we'll say circa our 25th show. And again, every Thursday. Past interviews have been with Liz Cohen, Issa Sow, Bill Miller, Greg Delaquila, you name it, we did it. And if we haven't done someone you think we should be interviewing, please reach out and give us some names. My name is Bob Foster. I'm the director of the museum, and from time to time, am the host for Hoboken Talks. And tonight we are so fortunate and timely to have Father Vincent Fortunato. Did I get that right? Fortunato?
You got it.
Who says, welcome, Father Vinny. We've really just met recently, but you're a very warm person, and you said we could call you Father Vinny, so that tells me a lot. So welcome to the show.
Great to be here.
So I'm just letting people know that if you want to make comments, ask a question to Father Vinny, just give a shout out that you're listening. We'd love to see you text on the screen, and we will recognize you. If there's a question, we'll try to answer it. And it makes being live more relevant, I would say. And we are so, again, happy that you're here. And we'll just get right into it. Tell us what your job is.
Well, at St. Anne's Church, I am the parochial vicar, which means there's a pastor, and then there's Father Charles and myself who assist in the parish there. So Father Remo's the pastor, and then Father Charles and I assist just to kind of keep things moving, flowing nicely.
Sure. Around how many parishioners do you have?
Well, I'm going to say, because that can shift. It shifts with a lot of people moving out from COVID and a lot more people moving in. So I'm going to say between 700 and 800 families or units. So we say more units because you have a lot of single people in the parish.
Sure.
In the past, was a lot of families.
Right. And one of the reasons we invited you on the program at this time is that we're right on the cusp of the St. Anne's Feast. And we were talking on the way over, how many years, what year are we celebrating?
Well, it's the 111th year this year, minus last year as far as the feast goes. So we're trying to figure out, did we count it or didn't we? But there's two parts to this. There's the feast, which is what a lot of people know, but more importantly, there's the Novena. And the Novena is 9 nights before the feast. There's Mass each night. And last year we had that. We had that part of it. On the day of the feast, we had a big Mass, but then we just left the church open. Normally, we process with the statue, with the saint. And we didn't do that last year. We just left the church open all day so people can come in. We did not have a street festival last year.
Right.
So I'm going to say it's 111th year, of which 110 of those, there's been a street festival.
So that means like the St. Anne's Church that people would visit now at 7th and Jefferson was built in, we were just talking about that, 1926. So the feast goes back longer, and the Novena goes back older than the present building.
Right, because the present cornerstone is 1925. Was that completed in 25 or 26? I don't know. I think it was completed more in 26. But before that, there was a smaller church, and it was the parish was there. The church is one part of it, but the parish family has been there for and I'm going to say 111 years.
Right. That makes sense. And then tell us who Saint Anne is.
Well, Saint Anne is the mother of the Blessed Mother, which would be the grandmother of Jesus. And so it becomes she's a big patron then, first of all, for grandmothers, secondly, for women expecting children or wanting to have children. And so it's really become, that's one of the things I think that really is established in that parish, because the St. Anne statue is the same statue from 111 years ago. And every year for the procession, they put a cape on her that has people have donated over these 111 years things to St. Anne, to that cape, of which there might be watches, wedding rings, whatever, in gratitude for answered prayers. So many of the women, maybe who have conceived a child after praying to St. Anne, they would put something on that cape. That tradition still continues. People are still bringing things to put on that cape.
When you see the procession, which is the last day of the feast,
July 26th.
Right.
Yes, that's the feast of St. Anne.
Right. And so tell us what happens on that day.
Well, it starts out with a big mass, and the procession begins with St. Anne's Guild. They're the ones. This is their 80th anniversary, and the St. Anne's Guild is a women's guild, long tradition in this, and they're the ones who really carry the saint.
Literally, yeah.
Well, yes, until it's 2012 when we got a cart to put her on, because the aging of the people prevent them from able to carry it all through the streets for the 5 hours that they do. And so that's the mass and then the procession. And only women can carry the saint. That tradition is 111 years old, and so it's changed a bit.
If I say Saint Anne is the patron saint of women, is that correct? Or
I wouldn't say that. I would say just patron saint of grandmothers, of mothers, because of her role as the mother of the Blessed Mother and the grandmother of Jesus. That's what the focus there is.
And so the guild, how does that operate?
Well, it's like any other guild. They meet monthly. They do a number of fundraisers throughout the year. Very, very supportive in the parish, and they raise a lot of money through tricky trays, through St. Joseph Table, and they run the Zapla Booth. The Zaplas are the fried dough with little powdered sugar on it, simple, but that's a huge, huge support to the parish, because it does bring a lot of money in. And
sure.
People wait online.
Right.
For the Zaplas.
Whenever I've been to the feast, the museum usually sets up a booth for the week,
right.
which is kind of a commitment on our part, but obviously just a blip compared to, the torch you guys are carrying. But the most common conversation that you overhear is, how long is the Zeppeli line? Okay, and like, the line wasn't too bad, or I waited 20 minutes.
Right.
And you see the powdered sugar on their face, and they've been there. And
last year when we didn't have the feast, so we didn't have the Zapla Booth, people want to know, are we still going to have the Zapla Booth, even though COVID was there? I said, no, we can't. And they were trying to figure out a way we could do that. Could we have drive-bys? And we said, it's just not worth it.
Right, drive-by. And so what prompted you to do the feast? To bring it back
this year? You mean?
This year, or did you?
Number one, tradition. Mm-hmm. Tradition is a key component to this whole thing. Because we missed it last year, the parishioners and the people who really volunteer for this, they were ready to go again, and we weren't sure. Like anybody else, we didn't know what the the restrictions would be lifted. Back in the beginning of June, Father Remo and Mario Ferrara, who was the chairperson, met with the police department, some of the city council, and they were very supportive and said, go with it. And of course, June, July, that's 2 months. You're not going to get some of the traditions that we've had, or some of the things that we put into it. And it's a feast that started, believe it or not, wasn't so big. Even though you see thousands of people, the streets weren't closed as much as they are now. A lot goes back to Marie Chitara a number of years ago. Marie has passed away this past year, last year.
Big loss.
Huge. And Marie was involved with this, I don't even know how many years, just as a young woman as a part of the guild. And she added a big dimension of bringing more vendors in. So that made the feast very big on the streets.
Right.
So
I can remember that she would call you on the phone like January 2nd.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a new year. Let's get it going for July.
Right.
Most people don't deal with that long.
Right. And that's Marie and Mario, both of them will work. They would normally start every week, every Friday night. They would meet in January to start planning, because you have to, usually we would have bands, live bands. This year, there will not be any live bands.
Right.
Only because the contracts have to be done long before June.
Right.
And so
you said you would have a DJ, and there'll be
a DJ. Yes,
element.
there'll be a DJ every night.
Right.
And,
right. Sure. And so we really encourage people to go to the feast. It's a real Hoboken tradition. We kind of say, if you're new to town, you want to get out and explore. It's hot, and there's no better place than going to the feast.
Yeah.
And you'll meet your neighbors, and you'll make new friends. And I always say, make sure you go in and visit the church.
Yeah.
People forget that's what it's all about.
Yeah. And that's the primary thing for us is, like they say, the Novena. That's why last year we had the Novena anyway, and we had the big mass on the feast day. And that's why, people say, well, is it good to do it in the streets there? Because of the dedication of the women in the guild and the people in the parish, it's part of the spiritual religious part. So the spiritual religious is first. That filters out into the street. If we couldn't do it there and had to do it someplace else, it breaks that up, and it prevents us from really keeping that tradition alive, between the prayer and the social part of it.
Sure. Location.
Exactly.
So you've served in other communities?
Yes, I actually, the only place, I'm a priest 41 years.
Wow.
The only place I've ever really functioned in a parish is Hoboken, St. Anne's. All the other time I did other types of things. I did formation work, which is training the guys who are coming in. I've done preaching. I was pastor from 2009 to 2012, and then I was asked to go preaching. So I did preach for 8 years. And then Father Remo asked me to come back to help take up some of the load, because Father Remo's pastor and he's provincial, which means he's in charge of all the friars, and it's a huge responsibility. So Father Charlie and I try to kind of take some of the stuff off his plate.
And before we were talking, you said your background was that you had grown up on Long Island,
yes,
which is kind of the suburbia of the USA, or at least East Coast.
Yes.
I see it that way. We have that in common.
Yes.
And
lived in the same town for a while.
That's right. But what makes Hoboken, like what did you find when you first came to Hoboken?
Well, the first feast I ever came to was the year 2000 that I really, got into it. I was provincial at that time. I was living in Union City. And I did not grow up with this kind of tradition. We didn't have processions. We didn't have street festivals. And so it was a unique experience for me when I'm seeing all this this devotion. And I remember the bishop was Bishop Ciritelli. He was an auxiliary here, and then went on to Paterson, and he was the presider, the main celebrant of the liturgy. He grew up in Newark, and I remember standing next to him as the saint is coming out, because you call her a saint, you don't call her a statue. I didn't know that. I got corrected a few times. As the saint came out of the church, I noticed so many of these women in the guild, and just women in the streets, crying, tears coming. And it was funny because I said to Bishop Ciritelli, I said, look at these people, they're crying. And he said, I can't see them through the tears in my eyes. He says, I grew up with this. And that's when I realized, okay, I'm the odd man out. There's a huge devotion here that these people, it's the tradition of devotion is huge in the Catholic faith. And it's huge because it speaks beyond just words. It's a deeper place. It's a place in people's hearts. And the St. Anne's Guild carries a lot of tradition. Many of the women, their mothers were in it, their grandmothers were in it, the great-grandmothers were in it, and it's like a tradition carried on. And it's a beautiful tradition.
And can you talk about some of the parishioners that are a bit unique?
I can. I can. I'll talk about, of course, Marie Tatara, God rest her soul, was unique and a wonderful lady. Very, very, very devotional. I could talk about an old timer, Joe Sivo. Joe Sivo is an usher at church. And when I would go around the country preaching and talking about, Mass and the talks on the Mass, or talking about different ministries, I would always use Joe Sivo as an example of what a good minister is. And he's an usher, which means he doesn't just seek people. He looks for people that are new, people that there's a new face. And inevitably, he will go up to those people and ask them who they are. Are they new here? If they're there after Mass and they want to know about the church, he'll take them around. He'll show them different things. And that's what, you don't find that in too many places, where he is that loyal of a parishioner and proud of his church. And, if it's after the 9:00 Mass, he'll take them down to the San Giacomo Club for breakfast, or go someplace for coffee, because, right. So you have parishioners like that. Joe Trulio, a strong tradition in the parish. Joe is very faithful. Many of the, Patty Pasculi, some of the women, many of the women have been involved there. Ann Sheeran's a real sweetheart and a real person that this is their life. This is their blood flow, and not just for St. Anne's, but all through the year. Right. All through the year. And
so how are you finding the younger audience, like new parishioners?
Well, and that's interesting to say, because I just was talking to 4 different parishioners in the past couple of days who are volunteering. So a lot of the young parishioners are volunteering to help at the feast. They're excited about it. And that's part of it. It's not an event for us to bring money in, which is, it is. But more importantly, it's an event where people meet each other. A lot of the young people want to work in the bar, and it's great because they're connecting with their friends there. You have young people all over the place there. So there's a big mix between the young and the born and raised, the people who've been there all their life.
And you need both.
Yes, and the young people are coming to church. People who think young people don't go to church, they do. We have a number of weddings this year. We have over 45 weddings this year. I think I don't know. I don't know what we have for 2022, but we're probably up to about 20 to 30.
Sure.
Which is a sign that people are around, people are coming, people want this.
And then tell us a little bit how you've been operating during COVID using technology, I assume.
Yeah. When COVID first hit, because we had to close everything, we couldn't have anything going on. No people can come to church. It's another classic example of St. Anne's. We had 3 different people that came forward who do camera work, asking if we needed any help. And, one man, and Nathan, he and his wife, they're there every Sunday. And they came, he brings his camera in, he does everything, live streams it. And that is not only when he can't make it, we have other people that use his camera and
Mm-hmm.
and continue to do it. So the live stream has been the key, because I think that opened up all kinds of new possibilities. Everybody's been Zooming and that, and so the religious ed program had a Zoom, adult education Zoomed, Rite of Christian initiation for adults Zoomed. So it pushed us to that new technology. Otherwise, we'd probably be sitting around doing nothing with that.
Right.
And it, and for 2020, 21, who ever thought the technology would be this way? Who ever thought we'd be doing something like this?
Sure. I just thought about it, but I think it's okay to ask, what about confession?
Yeah, that still goes. For a long while, we couldn't use the confessional, so we used 2 rooms on a Saturday when people started coming back. So we were shut down. I'm trying to think, probably from a year ago, April to June.
Yeah.
And it started opening up a little, and so we would have confessions. What we did at that time, too, was, even though the church was closed for Mass, we were allowed to open it a couple hours a day. And so during those couple of hours, one of us, usually Father Charlie, he's very good at this, sitting here in confessions, he's just there. You want to go? He's off to the side, and you can go. So,
Right.
And now we're pretty much back to normal, on the confessional.
And so, do you give Mass yourself?
Yes.
Yeah. But I see you as a real people person, so it must have been a little challenging having, just seeing the reaction of people, not seeing the reaction of people, and the aftermath after a Mass. You kind of connect with people, and that must have been kind of hard.
And saying Mass in an empty church, and Father Remo, to his credit, said, we just do what we're doing as if the full church. And so it wasn't putting any show on or anything else. It was, we're doing this, and there's a camera watching us, but we are still saying the Mass. And
Sure.
It really was, it's a natural thing. It wasn't really, we weren't performing for the camera.
Right.
And he brought in, Jeremy and Rebecca, who are the musicians, right from the beginning. So it was an empty church, but they were singing and playing. And so it was, if you're watching it at home, it felt like it's just like every other Mass.
Right. Right. Interesting. We've been having a great conversation, but we do have all these pictures too. Maybe we'll roll some pictures. And I want to thank Rand Hoppe, who is our engineer and producer of the program, and he's moving the images and making us look good. So we're looking at some historic pictures that are in the museum's collection.
By the way, you have great pictures in the museum. Great pictures.
Yep. And these are accessible by going on our website, hobokenmuseum.org, and it's a searchable database. So you could go on, it's all free, type in St. Anne, and bam, these would come up as thumbnails. So this does not look like the church where you work.
That's the old church.
It's the old church.
And I believe it was moved to the back when they started to build the new church.
Right.
And I think that the old church ended up, I think, as almost like a CYO gym place and burnt down.
Right, that's right. I heard that. So that church, we believe, was at 7th and Jefferson, the site of where the church is now, but it's a wood frame structure, I believe.
No wonder it burned down.
And like most wood structures in Hoboken, they eventually burned down. And look at that flagpole. It's so interesting. And it looks like
it's
a bell tower.
Between in that window, that symbol there?
Yes.
That's somewhere.
Okay, in kind of that Gothic
I just noticed
style.
It now.
Yeah, that's true.
I wonder if they kept that.
Right. And church architecture is really interesting and goes back to medieval times, a lot of it. Okay, and we're moving on. It's a little hard to read this because we got foreground and background, but what do you think we're looking at?
Well, that's the construction of the new church.
Right.
Wow.
And looks like it's not going to burn down. You got steel there, steel girders and brick. Yeah. And in the background is the old St. Anne's that's been moved over to Madison Street.
Right. And that would be in the back parking lot.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. The back parking lot. I always wondered why you had why you're lucky to have such a big parking lot there. That's always a problem for a lot of churches. There's no place to park. And it's a great shot of all the workmen posing. And that's sort of almost like airbrushed of the day.
Yes. And you see the emblem on the top?
Yeah, it's the
same. That's an enlarged emblem of the one that was in the old church.
Right.
I just noticed that.
Sure. I don't know enough about church architecture, but I'm sure it's, could be Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, or who knows? Trinity. Pretty cool. And I like that shot. And kind of noticing some of the photographer's marks in the corners. That's the Rossi studio, 415 Jefferson Street. And he's, big in the Italian community. And that shot is, what do you think? I mean, could be the grand opening of the celebration of the church. But or the arrival of the statue, something big. They got the ribbons on and so on. And that's a little similar to the backdrop that we have. And this is by also Rossi Studio. And you can see the parish house to the right.
Yep. And the old church.
And the old church is still there. And I guess the statue is coming out. I said the statue. St. Anne is coming out.
Yes. And it's could be going back in. I'm not sure.
You're right. You're right.
Only because
the crowd is kind of small, too.
Yeah. And they look like they just finished. But
no,
there's all men. That's the other interesting piece.
Yeah, well... And then the flags are kind of lowered, like they're going in.
Now it's coming out. Now you have
that's right. We have them reversed, and that's our background too.
Yeah.
Wow.
There's a lot of folks.
Wow. I always think of the procession being on the hottest day of summer, and that when it's not, I just think, oh, how lucky they are.
God bless those women too, because they don't really care.
Right.
If it's hot, if it's raining. I was with them one time. I walked with it. The only time I really ever walked the whole route was in the rain. And it rained the whole time.
Wow.
And they just stuck with it. There's some old timers there.
Yeah, someday we're going to have to look in your archives and try to find out these names. But I believe they are some of the original folks who came over from Italy to help establish the church.
The third guy from the left, the really long beard there, he is probably one of the founding friars of our province coming from Italy. Our province came from Tuscany, and they established in the Bronx. Actually, in Paterson was the first place. And then the Bronx, and then Hoboken was the next. So,
and can you talk a little bit about the Italian background of a lot of the parishioners, their original
My thinking is that they are from San Giacomo, the San Giacomo Club, and I don't exactly know where that is in Italy, but that's where I think a lot of the tradition came from. Uh, in fact, in the procession, they will take the statue of Saint James, Saint Giacomo, Saint James,
Right.
and they'll process. They'll come in. Father Michael Gori, the first pastor. Thanks, Roseanne.
Oh, there's Roseanne Versace.
Yes.
Who's doing a great job.
She
obviously.
is a
Yeah.
key person here.
Yes. Yeah.
She's pretty much taken over from Marie Tara.
right.
So.
Sure. Hi, Roseanne. She
Father
knew.
Gori, that's who
Okay.
it is.
Wow. And so we'd love to have Marie on sometime, and also Joe Sivo. I think he'd be an interesting guest. Okay, we're moving on. Oh, yeah, this one I just thought we'd put in. This is what they would call the St. Annes Bazaar, which was kind of like a carnival event, I think associated with the feast, but it was sort of honoring young, congregants. And I happen to know the gentleman on the right of the screen is Jimmy Roselli.
Wow.
Who was a pretty famous Neapolitan singer. And you said you
and
did.
When he died, I did his funeral at St. Anne's.
Right.
And then a number of years later, I was given a parish mission in Florida, and I met his wife there.
Oh, yeah. She's been here.
Yeah.
His wife. Yeah.
Yeah, because he was a parishioner.
Okay.
Right from the beginning.
Right. And to his Jimmy Roselli's right is B. Teresa, who was a member of the church, but would have preceded you. And the Teresas lived in the old parish house.
Really?
Like a couple doors down, there was a wood frame house that was set back. And that happened to be the old parish house. Okay, we're moving. I like this shot.
Now, this is a great picture because it's still what they're doing. The women walk with the statue, with the saint. And if you notice the woman in the black dress, she's barefoot.
Yeah.
That was a tradition that a lot of only women can walk the statue or would carry it. And now what they have on the cart, but they could walk with it. But only the women, and many of the women would walk barefoot. That was the tradition.
So are there actually like teams within the guild, like 6 women who carry the statue, and then there's another team? Or
at the beginning, yes, but as the saint starts to go through the streets, it goes for 5 hours.
Yeah.
And as it starts to go through the streets, the crowd thins out.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons why we decided to go with a cart.
Right. Was that a little controversial within the guild? Or?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. You don't have to elaborate. But,
very controversial.
Right.
And it still is a bit, and I understand it. Many of the women saw the tradition, that tradition was taken away. And I have to take the credit here. I'm the one who made that decision to put it on the cart. And it was a decision I went back and forth on, and I didn't actually decide it totally until the day before that, the 2012 procession. And yes, because some of them, it is a very, very important thing to carry. Very important. The positives, some of the women who've gotten older, or some of the women who are handicapped, cannot carry, but now they can at least walk with the saint.
Right. I can see the positives and negatives.
Yeah.
But
anytime there's a change,
it's
going to be
controversial.
difficult. Yeah.
Right.
Anytime.
Cool. Yeah, I love that photo too. It really says that. And so these are more contemporary shots, and we're seeing more of the garment or the vest.
Right. Yes. The cape there. And as you could see that's Saint Anne, and that's the Blessed Mother as a child. So that's why you'll always see the Blessed Mother with Saint Anne uh, the whole thing of that this is the mother of Blessed Mother and grandmother of Jesus.
And and the floral wreath, I guess, is that have significance? Or
Just, you know what? If I'm wrong, someone should let me know. But I think it's, I don't know if it's a significant thing, but it is something of, they change the flowers every day.
Oh, wow.
And they do change the flowers around and they give that to somebody whose mass it was for that day.
Right. And is there a particular florist that does that, or is
there is? And Anne Marie Rizzo, who's another great one too. She's the one who takes care of that with the florist, and I'm not sure who the florist is, and that's terrible.
No, it's okay.
Roseanne, you could tell me that again if you wanted to.
So this Saint Anne is in the church throughout the year.
In the back of the church. She has her own chapel. As you walk into the church, you go to the right, and there's the chapel for Saint Anne. And so she's there. And this statue is the original statue that has been refurbished hugely. It was Ellen Stewart. Beautiful. Okay. Thanks, Ellen. So I think it was for the 100th anniversary, we decided to have it painted. And the company was in Staten Island, I think. And the woman who did it was incredible. But as she started to peel things away, there was so much destruction to it. Some things that she found were broken and glued back. So she had to redo a lot of it. And, and the ladies put the money together and paid for it in full. And it came back, I think, beautiful.
And probably originally from Italy, or?
I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. I believe it's Michael's. Oh, the florist. The florist.
Right. Thanks, Roseanne.
Thanks, Roseanne. Next time I come on this, Roseanne, you're coming with me.
Okay. And this is what most people know is the outdoor activities from the feast. And
that's right on the corner of 7th and Jefferson. So that picture is taken from the Zapla Booth.
Right.
So that's where the Zapla Booth would be. And there's the ladies working the Zapla Booth. They've advanced over the years. There used to be like a trough of hot oil on a burner. And we've gotten a little safer now, so we have actual deep fryers. They're I think 5 or 6. I think 1, 2. I think there's 5 deep fryers. Buddy, the cake boss, helped us look at some. He gave us some suggestions years ago.
Right.
With that, and it's safer, it's better, and but how those ladies did it years and years ago, and these hot oil troughs is amazing.
Right. I mean, you would get burned just sort of walking by.
Yeah. So thanks, Eric.
I can only imagine.
Yeah.
See you at the feast, Eric.
Yeah.
But
the Zaplas are the key thing.
Mm-hmm.
And here are some of the young girls who work in the Zapla booth. Over the years, we've needed help, and so we have hired a number of young people that live in the area, and they help us out marvelously. And so these are 3 young women that work, and they're fast. These girls are fast, getting the Zaplas out on the counter. These girls can actually knead the dough. They could do almost everything. So you have a couple of girls, a number of girls and a couple of guys. These 2 guys that's Felix, and the one in the back is Ramon. These 2 guys have been with us for a long time. the man in front, his father is like he's the head of the fixing things, setting the bar up, fixing any kind of leaks, and his son has jumped in and helped out because 2 years ago Felix, who was his father, got sick, and these two guys, Ramon and Felix, could take care of all the maintenance of the feast. They need stuff to come up. They need hot oil. There's a leak. Sometimes the water could leak into the hot oil, and that it will make it overflow. These two guys are the ones who jump in and shut it down, clean out the oil, put new oil in. These guys are there. All these people, young girls and guys, they're there before we start, and they're there an hour to 2 hours after it closes at night. And they do the garbage. They do a lot of work.
Right.
So we are so grateful for so many of them.
Right. And they'll be glad to be back.
Yes,
right?
yes. And this year, of course, anybody working there has to be vaccinated.
Sure.
So a lot of young people are not vaccinated. I just found out that the young ones we need all got vaccinated.
Okay.
So there
was inspiration.
Yes.
That's pretty good. We didn't really talk. I'm thinking of other areas. So the church got a lot of damage during Sandy, but there was sort of a silver lining to that story too, I think.
Well, we were in a slow process of trying to fix up some leaks and things like this. When we have the 50-50 raffle every year at the feast, the money that the church gets goes to the renovation of anything in the church. When Hurricane Sandy hit, I was out of there. I was no longer pastor there. Father Remo came in, and the basement got terrible damage. As you know, anything that got hit with water, any kind of flooding, everything had to get thrown out. All those burners stored in the basement, they all had to get thrown out. And it gave us an opportunity because now the heating and electrical system were in the basement. Now we had to put them 2 stories up. And so that was the first beginning of a project to move that stuff 2 stories up, and they put it out in the parking lot. And they started with the renovation. They had to dig the parking lot up. They had to re-put foundations in the parking lot. They had to redo the basement. And then Father Remo said, well, let's do what we can do. And probably about 2 years later, so Hurricane Sandy hit in 2012. I'm going to say it was 2015, 14 or 15, when they started a restoration. And so it wasn't renovation, it's restoration. I think to the benefit of many of the parishioners, they saw that the church was beautiful, but it needed work. And so they put a lot of money into it, fixing the roof, fixing all the leaks, fixing the walls, and no changes to the church except cleaning it up. And so it was restored, and the people put money into it, and they put a lot of work into it and time. And we have, I think, I'm prejudiced here. I think it's one of the most beautiful churches I've seen. And
it is beautiful. And I mean, like what you said, the cleaning was amazing. Mm-hmm. I mean, they must have taken everything out and just polished and
we did
scraped and scraped.
Some of the mosaics there were black, just dirt over the years.
Yeah,
and they cleaned them all, trying to keep everything the way it was. So putting a
good shot to back that up.
Putting a new lighting system in, keeping the same fixtures, just changing the wiring and the lighting. Putting new lights in the back to bring out some of the beauty of the back altar there.
Right.
How high did the water get? They just were talking about that today. Eric, I think the water got 3 to 4 feet. I think that's what it was.
So the basements would fill up first, right?
Connie, and indeed one of the most beautiful churches. Connie was a parishioner. She's now moved down to Virginia. So
So
She keeps in touch with us.
right. Will Connie come back for this year's feast?
I would put money on it.
Okay, I thought she might reply back. So just go back to that one previous slide, Rand. Sorry. So this is the inside of church. I mean, it is so the materials, the marble,
Yeah.
the surfaces are just impeccable. And I've lived in Hoboken. Yes, Connie will be back. Thank you, Connie. see you on 7th and Jefferson. But I've never seen the church look this good, in 40 years. And I tell people you could eat off the floor. I know that sounds a little weird, but it's so clean.
Yes,
it's
and
amazing.
I have to give the credit to one woman, Maria, who's been cleaning there for 15 years. She does everything herself.
Really?
She does the whole church a couple of times a week. She cleans the rectory, the friary, she cleans the offices. She takes care of the basement. She does all the ironing. Does it all herself. I don't know how she does it.
I don't
because
either.
it's a lot of work.
No, it's a lot of square footage on there. I can remember going by the church, and I think they built a ramp for the steps, and they're moving in a scissor lift to get up, and or it was coming out. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
But just something about a scissor lift going into the church just seemed, very opposite. But they had to get up to the ceiling. Do you know how high the ceilings are?
I don't. I'm going to say, just by the sizes, I'm going to probably say 30 to 40 feet.
Yeah.
The top part of the ceilings is probably higher than that.
Yeah, but sure. And so you're in pretty good shape.
Yes. We thank God everything is fine. It's in good shape, and the people just keep it that way. The people do what they can. During COVID, we had to sanitize the church after every mass.
Oh man!
We would just say, "Could anybody want to stay?" And so many people just get a disinfectant wipe and start wiping down pews. And to the point where they will bring their own disinfectant wipes in.
Because that's a lot of disinfectant, right? Didn't even think about that. And so, how is the church set up during the feast? Like, people are welcome to come in. What would they expect?
The novena, the 9 nights of the novena, which we have mass every night at 7:00. So the church would be open. I'm going to say 6:00. Then when the feast starts, the church is open the whole time. So it'll be open all night, till midnight, 11:00. And then Saturday, Sunday, and Monday this year, because that's when the Feast of St. Anne is, the church is open all day long, And so people come in. Usually Father Charlie is sitting in the church there, available for confession if anybody wants to come in. And people during the feast, even though there's stuff going out on the streets, during the feast, people go into that church. They get candles, and the Holy Name does a lot of work with that and setting up the candles. And, now we can't have flame candles anymore because of fire hazards. So it's electrical. But in the past, and now they could buy candles and bring them home. But in the past, they would sell 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 candles during the feast. So, and people still come and they'll light the candles because they have racks now of electrical candles. It's just not the same, just the smell is not the same.
Sure.
But I understand the fire hazard that can be there.
And that's probably where Joe Sivo hangs out?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. He's in there the whole time. And Joe Trulio and so many. Patty Pasculi, who's president of the Holy Name. And the Holy Name does a lot of that, takes care of the inside part of the church during the feast.
Right.
They have, people can buy religious articles, too. And they sell that in there, too.
And it's air conditioned?
It's air conditioned.
An extra benefit.
Yes.
On there. Okay. And And another example
See,
of the
now,
procession.
the men are carrying the saint at this point because it just came out. So they'll set it up, and then that's Patty Pisculi right there with his back to us, and he organizes these guys, and
Right.
so they set it up, and then the women take over.
Right. I recognize Richard Del Baccio.
Yeah, oh
in your
yeah,
shot,
yeah.
too.
And
And this is
that's
setting
the
up the
guild,
women.
yep.
And the
And
guild.
the women have sashes, and they wear white, and that's how you know them. So, you know, at the day of the feast.
Right. Right. And this is probably the old tradition of carrying.
This would be before 2012.
Right.
And they got it on their shoulders. It's the little pillows on the shoulders to kind of help.
Right.
But it's heavy.
It is.
It's heavy. I don't know the weight of that statue, but I think somebody told me once it's about 600 pounds.
Okay. Sure. And those are steep steps.
Yes, they are. And I think that's why the men take it down. They have a little more control over it.
Right.
And once it's down on the street, there they are.
That's right. And is there a route that
There is.
Is that
and
based
that's,
on where parishioners live, or?
Yes, and that route has changed too, because in the past the parishioners lived further out, and so that tradition apparently this was before me, and the Feast of Saint Anne was almost like a holiday, and so that's why you always had a lot of people, in the streets there, because it was like a holiday. People would have dinners and all kinds of celebrations, and the saint would come down and would stop at certain places if you asked the saint, them to stop at that house. Still does that, but they don't go as far as they used to. There are a number of places where they're rest routes, they're rest stops.
Mm-hmm.
So Joe Trulio's Butcher Shop, that was one, and they would bring out pizza. Fayella's Funeral Home, that's another one, and the San Giacomo Club is another one, and they would bring out food and drinks for everybody, and they'd stop for about 10, 15 minutes.
Right.
And everybody get a little something to eat and move along.
Fuel up.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
definitely. And of course, won't be stopping at Trulio's.
No.
That's a
so I don't know if they're going to
gone.
go that far up. They might. I don't know.
Right.
And the police lead it. And so it's a wonderful thing where the whole town is involved. The police are involved. The first aid squad is always there. But the police, they have the route mapped out.
Sure. So I think we're kind of winding down. Is there anything else you wanted to present or discuss?
I can't think of anything more except we just invite as many people out as we can. Come out just for fun. Come out just to meet with people and say hello to people, and to come out and maybe come into the church and just say a prayer. Take a moment. If you are a woman wanting to have a child, to get pregnant, stop in St. Anne, talk to her, tell her you need help, and let the tradition continue. It's so important in our culture today for certain types of traditions.
And I would say that, under Sandy, we all kind of got a little insular, and I think it's time to get out there a little more. And
the COVID has locked people in. So
mentally and physically.
Yes.
So I think I'm really happy that the city encouraged you to continue this year, and the timing is right.
I am too.
And it may not be exactly like the past, but we got to start to stumble back for sure.
Well, and that's the thing is, again, it's a tradition. You had a bleep last year, and the tradition continues. Baseball is a tradition. They went through it last year, and it's back again. And it's that kind of thing. It's part of our culture. It's part of our life. And young people who weren't here last year, who came in last year, are excited about it because they've never seen it. And now that they want to be part of it, a number of them have volunteered just because they hear so much about it. So
I think you're also going to get a lot of, I mean, St. Anne's always had people who had roots in Hoboken, moved away, but would come back for that. And I think a lot of those people are really going to come back.
Yes, we hope so.
We hope we connect again.
We want to see the old friends again.
Yeah.
Connie's coming back.
Okay, Connie. Anyway, thank you so much. This
was
Bob, a lot
thank
of fun.
You so much. I
and
enjoyed it.
We're just going to make a few comments and wrap things up here. We had a great conversation with Father Vinny. I want to mention that next week, Valerie Huffnagel will be interviewed by Terry Francis. And Valerie has been a board member, board president, has a very important business in town, and should be a good interview. And then the following week, I'll be interviewing performer Ron Albanese. And we do want to thank some of our supporters of the museum. And Donald Chackett was someone who loved Hoboken, came here in the 70s and really, rose to make Hoboken an exciting place with all his ideas, and did include us in his estate planning. So we thank him for that. It's important. And also New Jersey Historical Commission, which is our main government supporter, and they help us in so many ways. And we recently received a grant to upgrade our microphones, our lighting, and we don't have more space, but they did help us a lot. So we thank them. And then Applied Development Company, one of the stalwarts in Hoboken, mover and shaker, and has definitely been a big supporter of the museum in many, many ways. And Roseanne Versace, thank you, Bob and Father Vinny. And thank you, Roseanne, for kind of getting the ball going. Oh, Connie's pushing raffle tickets. I love it.
Don't forget the raffle tickets now.
50-50 is...
Yeah, they're doing a little differently this year. It's $10 for a ticket, for one ticket. So it means less tickets, but more of a chance of winning.
Okay. Thank you, Connie, for that. You score points. Does she get a free ticket? No.
No, she wouldn't take a free ticket.
She wouldn't, yes.
She would
I understand that. Okay, so we're signing out of Hoboken Talks. And we do also mention that actually the museum is closed for visitation because we're putting up a new exhibit. And that's pretty exciting for us. We open August 1st, and the theme of the exhibit, it's called The Avenue, and it's a history of Washington Street. Washington Street is also another great tradition in Hoboken. So we really hope you come check that exhibit up August 1st. And then in our upper gallery, we'll be featuring the paintings of Donna O'Grady, longtime artist in Hoboken. Beautiful night scene shot here. And that also opens August 1st. And again, a lot of our other programs are still happening. And here's Rand Hoppe and his wife Lisa playing ping pong. And Eric Kamer is thanking us for the great show and the great hat. Yeah, I'm covering up my bad hair or lack of a haircut. But come up to the museum walkway, hang out, chill, and play some ping pong. So we got a lot of things going on and trying to keep the spirit going in Hoboken. Great. Thank you so much. Signing off just about now.